Hello, good morning, dear students. So, today we will be doing the last part of the second chapter, that is Company Secretary, and we will be learning about the duties, liabilities, and how the company secretary has been terminated from the company. So, authorities, the first topic over here is authorities of the company secretary. So, let us just start with the topic authorities of the company secretary. The company Act does not provide specifically for the authority of the secretary. That is a provision for the authority in the articles of association in the company. So there is no specific authority which has been given by a particular company to the company secretary, or not in the company's act as well. It is clearly mentioned anywhere that these are the authorities of the company secretary, but there is a provision made in the articles of association of the company that what are the authorities or what kind of work actually the company secretary is directly supposed to do. If it is not defined in the articles of association of the company, then the board of director has to pass a special resolution regarding the authorities of the company secretary. So if it is not clearly mentioned in the articles of association of the company that these are the authorities of the company secretary, then in the general meeting as well, the board of directors can pass a special resolution in the company regarding the authorities of the company secretary, and special resolution meant 75% people or 75% of the quorum who has attended the meeting has to give their votes in favor for the authorities of the company secretary to register the necessary documents with the registrar of companies and to obtain the certificate of incorporation. So this is the authority of the company secretary, that he has to register the important documents of the company to the registrar of companies, and he is also having the duty to obtain or to take the certificate of incorporation from the company. A certificate of incorporation is a certificate which has been given by the registrar of companies to the company, so that it would be a written legal proof that no, this company has already been incorporated in the company, and the registration of this companies is already done with the registrar of companies. The secretary is the head of the office administration. He has the authority to look after and control the various departments of the company. So the company secretary would be treated as the head of the office administration, and he is also having the authority to look after and to take care of the various reports of the company. The company secretary is authorized to sign the letters related to the allotment of the shares, call on shares, forfeiture of the shares, share transfer on behalf of the company. So, the company secretary is also authorized to sign the different types of letters, like different letters related with the allotment of the shares. Allotment of the share includes the shares when the shares are allotted by the company for the first time. Call on share means if the share is of rupees 5, then there is a possibility that the company may have already demanded rupees 4 in the previous session, and now the company would demand the remaining rupees, then that is call on shares. Forfeiture of the share means if the person or if the shareholder is not capable of paying his amount or paying his remaining amount of shares to the company would forfeit their shares. The company would, जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं ना, जब्त कर लेना, that is forfeiture of the shares. And share transfer as well, the company secretary is having a right to sign on the share transfer, calls on shares, all these certificates on behalf of the company. And the company secretary undertakes the correspondence with the different parts on behalf of the society company. So the company secretary is also having the right or authority to take or correspondence with the different parts of society and with the on behalf of the company. The secretary is authorized to work as an agent of the company, so he can work as an agent of the company. The company secretary is responsible for the work or as the power which are assigned by the board of directors. So he is also having the work, or he is also having the authority to do the work which has been assigned by the board of directors to that particular company secretary, and the secretary is authorized to execute the work as per the directions given by the board of directors. So he is also having that authority to execute the work according to the directions which are been given by the by the board of directors to the company secretary. Limitations of the company secretary: if the board of director is not instructed the company secretary, he cannot convey a meeting as per his wish. So, as usually in the company, a general meeting is held every year in the company. So it is the right or authority of the company secretary to take the minutes of that general meeting, and they are supposed to submit the minutes or of the general meeting to the registrar of companies. But if the board of directors of the company has not authorized or not conveyed a message to the company secretary, the company secretary cannot conduct a meeting according to his willingness without taking the permission from the board of directors. If the board of directors convey a message, or if the board of directors forward a message, then only the company can conduct the general meeting. The company secretary cannot borrow finance on behalf of the company for the affairs of the company. Even the company secretary is not having a right to borrow any kind of loan or any kind of a finance on behalf of the company to complete any kind of a task or affairs of the company. The company secretary can help to prepare the agreements, but he cannot enter into an agreement on behalf of the company without the authority. The company secretary is having a right. He is having a right to prepare and to help for the different agreements and different documents to the other people of the company, but he cannot enter into the contract with the company on behalf of the company, or he cannot enter into a contract with the company without the proper authority, and he cannot take any decisions as well. The agreement entered into are null and void, for which the secretary is not empowered by the board of directors, and the company is not bound for it. So, if any agreement is done by the company secretary and that is null and void means it is not true, then also he is not liable for anything, and the secretary cannot issue the shares to any general public without the authority. Liabilities of the company secretary: the company secretary is responsible if he violates any provision of the Companies Act. If the company secretary breaks any kind of law, then he is having the liability to pay the debt, or if he has any violated any kind of the provision, then also he is liable. The company secretary is responsible if it does not submit the necessary documents to the registrar of companies within the specific period of time. So if the company secretary does not provide the necessary documents to the registrar of companies within the given period of time, then also he is liable. He is also responsible if he misuses any his powers, and he is also liable for the punishment or of a fine or with imprisonment. And the secretary is also responsible for any act which has been done by the secretary beyond his power, means he has to work in such a way that his powers should not be violated at any cost. The secretary is responsible for any loss that occurs due to his willful negligence of his duty. It is responsibility of the secretary to pay the loss. Because of the willful negligence of the company secretary, if the company faces any kind of loss, then the company secretary is personally liable to bear that loss. The secretary is responsible for not writing the necessary recommendations in the meeting. If he does not write the necessary recommendations or minutes of the meeting or the remarks of that meeting, he is responsible to do that work. He is liable, and he is also responsible for unnecessary authorized changes made by him in the document. So, the company secretary is also responsible for doing the unnecessary changes in the document. Termination of the company secretary: the company secretary is appointed by the general resolution passed in the general meeting with the board of directors of the company. So, however, he is appointed with the help of a general resolution or a special resolution, which has been passed by the board of directors in the meeting. Usually, his appointment is terminated as per the terms and conditions of the agreement. The first terms and condition is in the case of the death of the secretary. If the secretary dies, then there would be a termination of the secretary. And the if the secretary isn't capable of doing the contract, so might be possible that his mind is affected at any cost, or he is abnormal, or he is mentally disturbed, he cannot enter into a contract, or he cannot be treated as a company secretary. When the secretary gives resignation himself, means voluntary resignation is given by the company secretary when the company issues notice for the termination. So when the company is giving the notice to the company secretary for termination, when any fraud or misappropriation is done by the company secretary, means when any kind of a fraud is done by the company secretary for the willful negligence of his duties by performing his work, means he has done the wrong work intentionally. Then when the secretary violates any provision of the company law, when any secret profit or commission has been taken by the company secretary, or when the company goes into the voluntary liquidation, at that time the company secretary, the post of the company secretary would be terminated. Thank you. And you have to copy these limitations and authorities of the company secretary in the fair book.